Hi, I'm Lauren, the head gardener here at Hancock Shaker Village. Today I'm going to take you on a walk around the farm to see how we prep our beds, sow our seeds, and set our transplants. Every farm, every farmer are unique. We practice a kind of agriculture that could best be described as regenerative. We're actively working to improve the ecosystem of our farm and the planet. We use shaker and modern agricultural techniques to create a thriving ecosystem for our crops, but also native flora and fauna. This is one of our hoop houses, where our young plants grow until they are almost ready to be set out in the field. It's heated with sunshine and compost. In the early spring, we fill these boxes with hot compost, and it creates an ideal place for our young seedlings to grow. As the time to plant our young seedlings out in the field approaches, we move them out here to our hardening off boxes. Here we give them some time to become acclimated to the stronger sunshine, higher winds, greater temperature swings, and less water that they will encounter out in the field. As I was walking to the hoop house earlier, I noticed the bees were starting to swarm. They seem to do this during the first really hot spell of the season. It's a cool time to get up close and take a peek, as they're very docile while they're swarming. I called the beekeeper. He should be on his way to come collect them. Well, back to planting. Two of our farmers, Josie and Miles, are prepping some of our no-till beds for seeding with beans. First, we're going to rake off the light coating of last year's mulch. Then we'll open up the soil with a fork. We'll add an organic fertilizer and seed right into these beds. As Josie is opening up the soil, we see that it's damp, it's rich, it's full of worms. One of the benefits of no-till is that we don't disturb the integrity and the biology of our beds. A quick run over the bed with the stirrup hoe will get rid of any of the large clumps. A final raking to smooth out and level the seed bed will allow us to run our seeder through. When we first decided to transition to no-till, I was worried about how we would seed into the beds, but with a little hard work, we were able to turn these into perfect seed beds in short order. The labor we put in now will be saved by healthier plants, less weeds, and a beautiful harvest. We've set our lines in our field. We use lines to ensure that our crops are straight. It really helps with uniformity of growth, watering, and hoeing. And so we've created a 1-inch deep little furrow, and we're going to place the beans 3 inches apart. After we place them, we cover them with soil and tamp them down to make sure there's really good contact between them and the soil. It may rain later today, but if it doesn't, we'll water these in nice and deeply and keep them watered until they emerge. Another way we seed is using the earthway seeder. It's not as accurate as hand seeding, and it definitely has its issues, but it's quite a bit faster. These were last season's well-mulched pepper beds. They became this season's early transplant beds. All we had to do to transplant into them was to add a little organic fertilizer, part the soil, and set the transplants. Once we've caught up with the rest of our planting, we'll add some more mulch to keep down the weeds and to continue to add organic matter to our soil. We also use limited tillage beds at Hancock Shaker Village. These beds were seeded with winter rye and daikon radish in the fall. The rye protected the soil over the winter. The daikon went deep down into the soil and opened it up. In the spring, we laid a thick bed of compost that we create here and tilled it in. We then planted these cabbage transplants, which would really like some rain. Soon we'll be mulching these, and if these beds hold up well enough until the spring, next year there'll be no-till beds as well. One of our farmers, Sam, is going to show the proper technique for planting a young pepper. They part the soil with their blade and gently place the seedling in the hole they've created. They fill in the hole to the right depth, making sure that the root ball is covered, creating a dish-shaped depression to collect moisture. Care of the soil is at the foundation of everything we do. We accomplish that in a lot of different ways, but some of the main ones are limiting tillage, cover cropping, and mulching. I'm here in our garlic patch. It was seeded last fall and was mulched with leaves we gathered from the community with a light coating on straw on top. It's doing really beautifully and there isn't a weed in sight. It's been really dry on the farm the last couple weeks. But if I part the mulch and reach down, the soil is damp and cool. And look, worms. A community member asked us about using a dark mulch to encourage growth for their tomatoes and other heat-loving plants. The answer is yes, it's a good idea. We do a similar thing here at Hancock Shaker Village. We've laid this biodegradable corn-based plastic down where our tomatoes are going to be planted tomorrow. In the rows between them, we've mulched with leaves. We've used a lot of different mulches here at Hancock Shaker Village. Leaves are one of our favorite. They're free, they're plentiful, and it helps us keep things out of the waste stream. In our medicinal herb garden, we use some rotted wood chips. Mulch in general is a great idea. You can use cardboard, newspaper, wood chips, compost. All of those will have the benefit of weed suppression and moisture retention. The darker the mulch, though, it will help heat up your beds and help your heat-loving plants finish before the season is over. We lay our mulch in all sorts of different ways at Hancock Shaker Village. By hand, with buckets, with forks, and with the manure spreader you just saw driving by. We started doing that this season, and it works really great for large spaces between our winter squash and tomatoes. If you take a walk down our farm and forest trail, you might catch a glimpse of our wood chip pile and our leaf pile. Our leaf pile is pretty humongous, and we aim to use all of them up this season. We start gathering them in the fall from landscapers, community members, neighbors, and everyone's really happy to bring them by. It's a good example of a resource that's going unused in the community that it can have a real benefit in our farm or in your home garden. And honestly, your neighbors love it if you ask them to bring their leaves over to your garden instead of having them bag them up for disposal. Our leaf pile at Hancock Shaker Village is probably only rivaled in size by our compost pile. We're lucky we keep animals here, and it allows us a steady stream of bedding and manure that we age for about a year and then use in our fields. Compost is an important part of the adding of nutrients to our fields, as well as the building of organic matter. When we use it, along with an organic fertilizer, we ensure our plants have everything they need to thrive. Well-fed plants are less susceptible to disease and pests and have better yields. You can see when it comes out of the barn, it looks pretty raw, but after it ages, it becomes dark, rich, and totally odorless. Really important part of caring for our young plants. There's a nice light rain falling on the farm right now. That's good news, especially for our crops. Most plants require about 1 inch of water a week to grow properly and to be healthy. During planting time, this is especially important because young plants that haven't gotten their roots deep down into the soil are vulnerable to drying out. The Shakers would have relied on rainfall mostly to irrigate their crops. We're lucky here in that we use water in our garden from the Shaker Reservoir up on the mountain. A challenge of our reservoir is that it doesn't currently allow us to run modern irrigation equipment like drip tape or sprinklers. So we rely on rainfall, a limited ability to water, and again, mulch. We find that once our plants are well mulched, their watering requirement decreases quite a bit. Even during the 5 years I've been farming at Hancock Shaker Village, we've experienced inconsistencies in the weather, season to season. Spring droughts, endless August rains. We have to be creative in our farming methods to deal with instability in the weather. Mulch is a simple and useful tool to help mitigate the effects of a shifting climate. Farming makes us really sensitive to these shifts and patterns in weather. And it makes me rely on the earth. It creates a sense of responsibility to take care of the planet that we need to provide the food that we eat. So while this pouring rain might ruin some people's plans for the day, we greet it with joy. Thank you for walking around the farm with me today. I hope you got a good picture of how we prep our beds, sow our seeds, and some of the tools we use to help our young plants thrive. This kind of weather is perfect for working in the hoop house, so that's where I'm going to head now. See you soon.